Cinema, the magic vehicle, a comprehensive guide. Journey 1, 1913 to 1950.
Today we are undertaking a true excavation, really digging into the foundations of cinematic history. Our mission is to pull out one specific, really towering masterpiece from the silent era, a film that, well, it changed how directors use landscape and tragedy. And we're doing this thanks to a pretty amazing guide, Cinema, the Magic Vehicle. We're drawing from this comprehensive resource. It was crafted specifically to help film enthusiasts like you explore cinema history from, 1913 through 81?
That's right. It's a fantastic resource. And that's really the key value here. This book is like a true shortcut to getting well-informed about classical films because it offers more than just, plot summaries. It weaves in the crucial historical context, the cultural stuff, showing you how these huge political shifts, social events, cultural currents, how they influenced the filmmakers back then.
So you really understand why they made the film that way.
Exactly. When we talk about a film from, say, 1918, you're not just seeing an old movie, you're getting a deep reflection of that specific time.
And the cinematic treasure we're highlighting today is a perfect example of that. Victor Sjöström's 1918 silent epic, The Outlaw and His Wife. That's Berg-Ejvind and Halla in Swedish. And when we talk about stakes, the source material doesn't pull any punches here. It calls this Sjöström's best directing achievement in Sweden, and get this, one of the greatest tragedies in silent cinema.
Wow.
That's a massive claim, isn't it, for a film shot over a century ago?
It absolutely is. And it immediately sets a very high bar for our discussion today. To really appreciate it, we have to start where Sjöström did, right, with the source material. The story actually came from a play, Fjalla-Eyvindur, written in Danish, interestingly, by an Icelandic dramatist, Jóhann Sigurjónsson. And this play was wildly popular, really captured the imagination in Scandinavia almost right after it was published in 1911.
So the core drama, the emotion, it's rooted firmly in that, that stark, beautiful Nordic tradition. The film takes us to Iceland in the mid-18th century, which, just as a setting, tells you immediately survival is going to be central, right? The environment is harsh, unforgiving.
Definitely.
And our story revolves around two main figures. First, there's the outlaw himself, Berg-Ejvind. He's an escaped prisoner, jailed for, arguably the most sympathetic crime you could imagine, stealing one sheep to feed his starving family.
So he represents that sort of desperation, that necessity.
Exactly. And then we meet Halla. She owns the farm, a really personable widow, quite powerful in her own way. Agent comes to work for her.
Right, and immediately Halla faces this social and economic pressure from her brother-in-law, the bailiff Björn Bergsteinsson. The bailiff clearly wants to marry her, maybe not out of love, maybe more for her status, her farm. And he keeps using her past against her, reminding her she used to be just a servant.
Ugh.
That immediately sets up a fantastic internal conflict, doesn't it? She's being pushed to marry for stability, maybe, but at the cost of her own dignity.
Precisely. And the tension is immediate. Halla rejects the bailiff. And instead, she chooses Ejvind, this strong, handsome newcomer. She sees something in him, maybe that spark of freedom. Even though the bailiff is dropping these hints, warning her that Ejvind's a thief, she just brushes aside the social fallout and chooses, passion, conviction, over stability and just fitting in.
That defiance is the engine, then.
It's the engine of the whole tragedy, yeah.
That's a phenomenal start for a heroine in 1918. Right. Okay, so inevitably, Ejvind's past, it catches up with them. Once his identity is out, the lovers are forced to run. They seek refuge in this truly remote mountainous area, and the source says they live happily for several years, like a harsh idyll, but still happy. And they have a daughter. Yeah, a small daughter. But this period of, relative peace, it's just the eye of the storm. The pursuit hasn't ended. Eventually, their hiding place is discovered. And this is the turning point. This is where the story shifts from, a love story into a pure survival drama. They fight this desperate, brutal battle against the bailiff and his men, just to defend their little patch of freedom.
Oh, man, that discovery. The tension must just explode. How does Sjöström even show that intensity in a silent film?
Especially the climax involving their child, because this is where the source material describes something just devastating.
It is shockingly brutal, and it really shows the extremity of their commitment to being free during this life or death fight. The source recounts that their small child is tragically lost.
Lost how?
The mother, Halla, she throws their daughter
throws her.
Yes, it's an act of just ultimate devastating desperation. It's not malice, you understand. It's this twisted calculus that if they can't be free, nothing, not even their child, can fall into the hands of their pursuers. That is profound.
Yeah.
and utterly shocking, even now. It makes her earlier choice to follow Ejvind seem almost minor in comparison.
It seals their fate, really. It's an act that, yeah, it preserves their immediate escape, but it sets them on this irreversible, fatal path. They're forced to flee again, even further this time, deeper into completely inaccessible, barren, rocky terrain.
This keeps getting worse.
And the film jumps forward then, showing their decay. Years later, they're trapped in this extreme refuge. They're weak, desperately hungry, and then they're cornered by this awful 7-day storm, continuous storm. They've reached the absolute limit, physically, mentally.
And the finale. It's still an act of defiance, isn't it? Not just giving up. They choose to die together in a snowy abyss. But the decision-making here. The source highlights Halla's agency. Even in this final, terminal moment, that detail feels absolutely central.
It absolutely is. It's like the intellectual heart of the tragedy. Ejvind, he's totally weakened, resigned. He wants to leave matters, as he puts it, in the hands of God. He's ready to just accept fate.
But Halla's not having it.
No. Halla rejects that passivity. She chooses death, a decisive act of free will, and she forces Ejvind to follow her. She makes sure their final decision is this mutual, loving act of defiance. Against the environment, against a fate she just refuses to passively accept.
Wow. That puts such immense weight on her shoulders. It makes her one of the most proactive, uncompromising characters in early cinema, surely. Okay, let's pivot a bit. From the narrative tragedy, which is immense, to the film's artistry. Because this is what critics argue really elevates it beyond just a sad folktale. Stylistically, it's considered maybe the clearest, purest example of the silent Swedish school. And genuinely one of the most beautifully constructed works in all of cinema history. That's high praise.
And the reason for that praise goes right back to the setting. Sjöström's use of landscape here. It wasn't just innovative for the time, it was revolutionary. The hills, the streams rushing by, the waterfalls, the geysers, they aren't just pretty backdrops, you know? They're deliberately used as symbols of intimate human feelings.
So the landscape reflects their inner state.
Exactly. The source explains that the landscape functions almost as an independent participant in events. It's given its own personality. When the lovers are happy, you see the water flowing, the sun shines. When despair sets in, the mountains become hostile. The snow is just unforgiving. The environment becomes this dynamic, emotional character. It either helps them or threatens them, kind of based on their internal state.
That makes the environment an active accomplice in their fate then, an element of the drama that they just can't control. And this ties into the film's architecture, right, which is quite formal.
Yeah.
The structure is described as being like a tripartite symphonic poem. For someone maybe not up on musical structures, how should we think about that?
Right, tripartite symphonic poem. That basically just means the film is organized like a classical symphony with 3 distinct movements. It signals that the form is really intentional. It's following the function of the story. The Sjöström didn't just, string scenes together. He constructed the drama to have these 3 distinct, emotionally progressing movements, and each one is dominated by a different landscape and a different mood.
So what are the 3 parts?
Well, the first, and it's the longest movement, shows that relative stability of life on the farm. You see the changing seasons. There's a sense of possibility there.
Right.
The second movement is that harsh idyll up in the highlands. That's where they find that fleeting happiness, but always under the shadow of these beautiful but threatening elements.
And the third.
And the final chilling movement is the cruel solitude and despair in those hostile snowbound mountains, which leads inevitably to their final choice. The landscape changes the mood, and the mood really determines the action. It's beautifully done.
That's a powerful way to visualize the film's progression. It sounds incredibly deliberate. So if we connect this masterful structure and the, frankly, unrelenting tragedy back to the bigger picture, the source material notes the film as a profound reflection of Scandinavian restraint and attitudes towards life dominated by what it calls Lutheran determinism.
Yeah, that concept.
These protagonists are like the proud, stoic heroes from the old sagas.
That concept of Lutheran determinism is really vital here. It suggests this sense that fate is already decided or at least heavily guided by forces beyond our individual control.
Okay.
So the proper human response in that view is stoicism, emotional restraint. A clear, unsentimental expression of basic human emotions. You don't, weep and rage against fate. You accept it with dignity.
Which makes the central paradox of this film so utterly confusing, doesn't it? Despite all this cruelty, the isolation, the lost child, the starvation, the explicitly tragic ending the source describes the film as one of invincible optimism. This raises a huge question. How can such a devastating story possibly be seen as optimistic?
Yeah, it's the highest intellectual point of the critique, I think. The optimism doesn't come from a happy ending, obviously. There isn't one.
Clearly not.
It comes from the manner of their defeat. The answer the source provides is that evil is challenged and defeated by inner strength. Ejvind and Halla die, yes, but they die on their own terms, in mutual love, having actively chosen their final moment together.
So the triumph isn't physical survival, it's existential. Their love, their conviction, it defeats the societal constraints that hunted them down, and it defeats the brutal natural environment that tried to crush them. They kept their integrity, their agency, right to the very end.
Precisely. They chose freedom over mere survival. And they upheld that defiance even when staring into the abyss. And there's a subtle layer reinforcing this too, a great production detail. Because the war made filming in Iceland impossible, Sjöström actually shot the open-air scenes in remote parts of Lapland.
Oh, really? Not Iceland?
Not Iceland. And the real-life lead actors, Victor Sjöström himself and Edith Ehrstoff, who played Halla, they were actually lovers at the time, working openly together in, defiance of social convention back then.
Wow.
So their own relationship kind of mirrored the film's theme, in a conviction overcoming restrictive societal limits.
That production context is perfect. It echoes the themes right back to defiance of convention, both on screen and off. So let's wrap up what this deep dive has given you. We found a masterpiece in The Outlaw and His Wife, a silent film that really revolutionizes the use of nature, making the landscape an active, dramatic character.
Absolutely.
It centers on this incredibly powerful female protagonist, Halla, whose uncompromising agency drives every single life or death decision. And ultimately, it reframes a truly heartbreaking tragedy as somehow a profound statement on the triumph of inner strength, that invincible optimism.
And this single film entry, which is so meticulously detailed in Cinema, the Magic Vehicle, it just demonstrates that early cinema wasn't simplistic at all. It was a mirror, reflecting incredibly complex cultural attitudes, everything from stoicism rooted in ancient sagas to the challenges of Lutheran determinism. It provides this powerful psychological and dramatic reflection on that eternal conflict between freedom and fate.
It certainly feels like a key piece in understanding the art form.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a final provocative thought for you to consider until our next deep dive.
Yeah.
If Sjöström's film works so well because that unforgiving landscape, Icelandic or Lapland, doesn't matter, acts as an independent participant.
Yeah.
Well, what modern film that you know relies so completely on its setting? A desert, a skyscraper, maybe a distant planet, relies on it so much that the story literally could not exist anywhere else.
Interesting question.
And what is that essential link between the environment and the plot? Tell us about the relationship between human emotion and the world we actually inhabit. Something to mull over.